going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another one of our convos. Joining us today is Layto, new artist. Well, not new, but definitely rising artist. We're very excited to speak to you today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, obviously, you have a new EP out. You have a bunch of news coming up. New label situation, stuff like this. And we definitely want to talk about everything like that. But before we get into all that, for, our viewers, listeners that may be not so familiar with you, kind of want to talk about your background, how you got into music, like how you get your start and everything.
Yeah. Kind of had a very informal, unique way in how I got into music as a career. But, I've always been interested in music. I always was around music. It just wasn't something that, was at the forefront of my brain initially. What happened was I was at college and I was just like fucking around, skipping class. And I saw like a recording booth and like there's a library that I would go up on the third floor and I would sleep in. And I just stumbled into a recording booth that I'd always wanted to kind of, get my feet wet with music, but I just didn't really know how to facilitate it. And ended up in there and then just kind of became obsessed with it, man. Got into FL Studio, then, Logic, Ableton, writing, recording, just a lot of bad records in that booth, but I think, very important to me. And then even then, just like making music was more just passion for me. It wasn't anything that I thought would become anything. And I honestly just got lucky. I put out a record and was able to get a manager from it. I was just sent my demos out to different managers. I knew you needed some sort of representation. I didn't know how this shit worked. I knew like you weren't going to message people yourself. So I'm like, all right, I need somebody to kind of like facilitate on my behalf. So I just reached out to like literally 2,000 to 3,000 managers via email. And like 10 of them might have responded. 9 of them said like, hey, like best of luck to you. And then one of them took an interest. He liked the music and kind of just like took me on as like a personal project, I guess. And we put a record out and we hired a woman to facilitate it and send it to different like curators, and the rest is history. Kind of got lucky, to be honest.
Yeah, and here you are. Sometimes it's like that. Like everybody in music's got such like a crazy, weird story into like how they got into it. You never know how it's necessarily going to happen. But so you grew up in Boston?
Yeah, I grew up in Boston, and then my family moved down south of Boston to this little town called Sandwich.
Definitely, I've never heard of Sandwich.
Yeah, no one has. There's a meme. There's actually a meme on the internet. It's like the Sandwich police vehicle, and it says Sandwich on it, and mad people like, it's like a meme. People made fun of it and shit, but I actually grew up in that town.
It's funny.
Yeah, but I just was always interested in writing. I always journaled and shit like that. I would always listen to records and change the lyrics, even just, I think I had a penchant for lyrics at a young age, but it didn't really come to fruition until I got a little older. But music's been a great outlet for me. Even, before it was a career, it was just always something that helped me kind of get through shit and reconcile different shit going on in my head or things that were going on around me,
Yeah. So like you said, you grew up in a very small town, city, Sandwich, Massachusetts. So I guess like how, if any way, has like that where you grew up influenced you like musically, or like has it affect you in any way, in your songwriting, music, whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I think being a little bit more like withdrawn, smaller town, being more acutely aware of different shit going on, and then just having kind of a great family. I love my family, but like a pretty dysfunctional home in a good way now. And as I'm older now, and I actually really appreciate that. And a lot of great experiences and growing up quick and shit like that. So that all informed my music for sure. And then as I got a little older, all my relationships and all my issues definitely help the writing process, and it all informs it, I think.
So like, I mean, for a lot of people like growing up in small towns, especially like doing something what you're doing on such a, big scale, it's kind of strange. So like when you're like, music is what I would do, how was kind of like the response from like your peers and people around you?
I think it's probably similar to like somebody being like, yo, I'm going to be in the NFL. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
buddy. And it's like almost laughable. So I honestly, I didn't say anything to anybody, and people in my hometown didn't even know I was doing music until shit kind of popped off, for my like size or whatever it was. But
Yeah.
I was almost like aware of that and embarrassed to be like, yeah, I'm doing music. And people would be like, shut up. I didn't say a word. And then, randomly people would be like, what the fuck? Like, you're doing music? And I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss or not.
Feel free.
Okay.
You cuss on there all the time. It's no worse.
But yeah, I didn't say a word about it. I just kind of put my head down. It was something that I like, and I kind of like that. I like to just privately have my own goals, and it was like my own personal thing. I know it sounds weird because it's kind of like counterintuitive to marketing yourself, but in the beginning, I liked very much so to just quietly go about my business and had all these little micro goals that I wanted to attain. And yeah, that's how I went about it.
Yeah, I mean, especially like in a way, growing up in a small city, small town is almost more pressure because it's like you're in such a small bubble that anything that anybody does that's out of the ordinary, it's always like elevated to another level. So I definitely like understand that feeling for sure.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's,
word gets around quick.
yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, that's how it was.
Growing up, like, who were like some of your biggest musical influences that, still affect you to this day, maybe?
Oh man, so many. So my father was very much so into like the old crooner, like 40s, 50s, like those old jazz crooner, Sinatra, Martin, those guys. And then my mom was always Motown, like Stevie Wonder, the Rockettes, shit like that. So I had like a weird amalgamation. And then I had older brothers and they were into punk rock. And then my closest sibling, my middle brother, we're closest in age. He got me, he would always just play music and I'd be in the car and he got me into like Dre and Snoop and, Eminem.
Got everything.
Yeah. But I really took a liking to like the West Coast hip hop and Eminem and Biggie and Tupac. So I really liked hip hop. And then as I got older, I got into like, I like alternative rock too. So I think like, honestly, all of that, like that weird spread of music that I grew up on, like it definitely influences my music today because I do a lot of genre bending and I'll do like records that like are rock records that have like hip hop 808s and stuff like that. So it all makes, it kind of all makes sense now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could definitely hear it in the music that I'm hearing from you, like all the different influences and kind of how effortlessly you kind of switch styles and switch between different sounds and everything. But like you said, like especially nowadays, it's almost a norm now because I think most kids, especially with like streaming and everything, just grow up listening to anything and everything. So I think for like your specific sound and style and genre, if you want to put it, genre is definitely like perfect for like I think this generation. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I definitely do. I feel like I have I'm in a good situation in that like my audience isn't very, like snobby with their taste. Like I can kind of dip my toes in at more of a hip hop leaning record and they're like, oh, cool. It seems like it responds well. And I can do more of a rock leaning record and it, it's the same kind of response. So I feel like I'm lucky and fortunate in that regard. Whereas like, I feel like maybe a rapper, it would be such a departure to, do a rock record or whatever. So, I just kind of, I don't know. I honestly don't think about it too much either. Like, I don't want to make it seem like it's a very contrived thing. Yeah. It's just shit that I like to listen to. I like to make and, we'll just see what happens. And, that's it.
Okay. So I think your first project was in 2018, like EP. Yeah. Was Low Boy.
Yeah.
So you haven't really been, on the major scene like for very long, especially for, the level that you're at now. So how was putting out your first EP? How's the response to that? And like, how's, your journey to this point been? And you also did it kind of like 2 years right for the pandemic and everything. So like, It's been a
Yeah,
weird time.
I know. It truly has been. So I had the success with that first record that I put out, and then we, kind of like I got signed into a deal for a one EP record. I didn't even know what, I had no idea about the business behind music whatsoever. I was literally like picking up trash, prior to that. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So we put it out, and like come to find out that like, there really wasn't a demand for an EP at that time. So that was like a weird experience, but coming full circle now, putting out an EP, a week ago, it's like, we put in the work to grind and build an audience. So now it feels like, it was the appropriate time to put it out and not just fall on deaf ears where it's, there's a built-in audience to a certain extent. And it's, it feels good. It feels like people wanted to hear, a longer length project rather than just dropping singles every month, which is what we've been doing for, 3 years. So yeah, but
you guys have put out a lot of music.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I try to put out a record monthly anyways, just because it's so fucking competitive with different artists.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy game right now for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the grind, I mean, it was a lot of work, a lot of struggling, personally, and just working. Like my job sucked. So, and also just hoping to God that music would work out so that I didn't have to work anymore,
Yeah, definitely. So I guess how would you say maybe your sound and your like maybe creative process has evolved over the years since kind of those initial singles and EP?
Yeah, I would think I have like more of a breadth of like a bigger sonic space, and then I can add different elements like that we were talking about earlier, where I can add more of like the 808s and the hip hop style stuff. And I feel like, me, and not just me, my team, that my A&R and, this dude that I work with, Matthew Boda, who's like, him and I have been working in tandem for the last, since I put out my first record. So I have to say, like, he does a lot behind the scenes musically that, I wouldn't be possible without him. And him and I always kind of spitball, and we're trying to evolve the sound and keep it fresh. I always try to keep it fresh, I guess would be the short answer. I don't want to get stale and sound like I'm from 2015 or 2010, you know what I mean? I want to keep evolving it, because that's like, I listen to music too, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be stale with the shit that I put out. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I see it anyways.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that from like some of your earlier projects. You still kind of like a similar sound and template and everything, but then I feel like coming to this project now, you definitely, like you said, you added definitely more like layers in between the production and more fills and more stuff like that. Just more like, I think, overall sophistication. Would you feel that way?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. I hope to. I aim to anyways, but you don't always hit the mark. Another thing I am always kind of thinking of now is like, how is it going to translate live? Whereas before it was like, I didn't even really think about that at all. But now it's like you're playing shows. You got to be cognizant of that, So yeah, that's something that's on my mind as well. Is it TikTok worthy?
I mean, you're playing, but you're also not, because that's also kind of the game right now. Like that's definitely part of the whole music rat race going on, whether we like it or not, unfortunately.
It's true, man. It's like, that's another thing. Like when I first started, 4 years ago, it was a lot of my like, thank God I got in when I did, because honestly, I don't know if I would have a career, because I got a lot of YouTube curators that really fucked with the music and were able to kind of propagate it. Whereas like all the off-platform shit now is TikTok, really, Yeah. So it's not negative or positive. It's just like, that is like the medium now. And like, I'm lucky that I had like the YouTube side where it was like people fuck with alternative music more.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely grew up in the music blog era, people putting, indie artists on like this, people that you kind of like respect their opinion and kind of like their music taste. And now it's kind of weird because TikTok, it could be like a 12-year-old girl that like, it's how you get found,
Yeah. Like they respect her voice more, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like she's the music curator. She's like the gatekeeper now. It's weird. It's definitely a weird time, man.
I know. I know it's different, but I mean, you either adapt or see you later. You know?
Yeah, 1,000%. So
Yeah.
you just dropped Arrive, your latest EP. I think it was the 14th you released it.
Yep.
5 tracks. So how's the response been so far?
It's been great. Yeah, we just played some shows to support it, and those are great. And just playing them live was fucking awesome. Felt good, you know. We've heard. I always tell my manager, because you know him and I A&R the records, and like we hear the record maybe like 1,000 times literally before it's out. So I'm like so sick of hearing it, but playing it live, a fresh, you know, it's more of a fresh take on it. So that felt really good. But yeah, no, people seem to really like it. And you know, obviously I'm very appreciative of that, you know, getting messages from people and how it makes them feel and how it affects their life. It's fucking crazy. Like I said, I was picking up trash. Like this is crazy, you know. So it's pretty wild.
Do you have any personal favorites, like any song that you always kind of come back to the most?
Yeah, I would say the lead single in my head, because it's, you know, for me, it's something that like, it's all about battling my self-doubt. And that's something that I feel even still, you know, as I'm like kind of a newcomer in the music scene, I always feel like, you know, you always have thoughts of inadequacy and shit. And, so that's like a very personal record to me. I mean, they're all personal, but like that, you know, specifically holds a lot of meaning, I would say.
I think you guys just dropped the music video for that one too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Shot that in LA. That was cool.
Yeah. My head definitely, I mean, obviously I knew it was a single, but it definitely stood out as, you know, when I heard it, I was like, oh, this could be a big one. I think it's got all the makings of like one of those top songs for sure.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's what we aim for, you know.
I think it was the 4th track. I forget the name of it.
Thrills.
That's what it was. I also like that one a lot. It's super high energy, and I can only imagine like how playing that one live would feel.
Yeah, it's sick. Felt really good. I love those kind of like anthemic banger tracks that you can just like vibe out to on stage. You know what I mean? It's because it gets the crowd going. But yeah, that was a cool one. I wrote that with Sam Tenez and Matt Boda out in LA. I had like a writer's camp out there this summer, and that was great. We wrote that in like an hour.
Okay. Thanks. Sometimes that's all it takes.
I know. It's weird how that works. Sometimes it takes, you know, 6 months. Sometimes it takes an hour. It's just odd.
Yeah. Never know.
Yeah.
So like, you Arrived has, I think, multiple meanings for you, the title and everything. So kind of what's the meaning behind the title and this project as a whole?
Yeah. So the idea was, you know, musically, I feel like I arrived. It's, you know, we're 4 years into the career. Sonically, we've, you know, like we touched on earlier, I'm evolving my sound. I feel like I finally found my own personal sound. I think it takes a while to get there, you know. And so like sonically, I felt like, all right, it's time to put it on EP. We've arrived here at this moment. And then also just in my personal life, like getting to a moment where I got signed by a label and, you know, we're selling out shows, and it's just like, I don't know. So I got to sit back and I'm like, how the fuck did we get here? You know?
Yeah.
But somehow we are here. So that was the idea and the theme, the overarching theme behind the record. And each song has like a tinge of that. And, you know, that's kind of what we do.
Is this kind of hints towards maybe a future EP, like a full length?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not quite sure what we're going to, I mean, we wrote a lot of songs out in LA. I definitely have enough for an LP and like a few other EPs if we wanted to, but I just don't know like what the, you know, what like the structure behind that will be and what we'll end up doing. But I'm definitely going to put it on another project in the spring. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just don't know.
Like, definitely be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I guess I actually played a few of the new ones on stage just to tease them and shit, and it feels good. So, you know,
so you're like on tour right now, right? Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's the feeling finally playing some of these songs live for the first time?
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I'm sick of hearing them, so it's good to just play them and have people hear them. And it's just good to just, you know, with the pandemic and shit, it was like for so long you're not playing shows, and it's hard for a musician to promote your music or just to
Yeah.
feel like an interaction with people, in real time. So that's fucking awesome. And it's just a good feeling.
So any future goals, anything, specific that we should be looking out for? Obviously you said the spring, maybe another EP, another project coming out, but any specific goals? Got a new label situation, anything?
I honestly, I just hope to keep growing and putting out good music that is true to myself and honest lyrics. Cause I feel like at the end of the day, all I have is, what I put forward musically, and all my fans that really fuck with the lyrics and what I've done thus far. I hope that I can continue to, make them happy and add songs to their playlist and just keep plugging away. I try not to think too far ahead or have these, ridiculously lofty goals, because it's like there's only so much you can control. I just try to control what I do, and that's make good music, hopefully. So
you definitely make great music. Arrived, I think, was a fantastic project. We're definitely fans over here. Like your sound, like where things are headed for sure.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And this Layto Arrived EP just released 2 weeks ago now. Definitely go run those streams up. Go hit them up on TikTok. Do whatever you can to help get them out there. But you're definitely seeing the growth year over year, and it's well deserved, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate y'all having me and promoting the record and all that.
For sure. Links for everything will be down below wherever you guys are watching this. And as always, thanks for watching us and enjoying these little convos that we put on.